Hello, welcome to my fourth ever project. If at this point you're thinking, why so many pen transformations? It's because I have so many that I don't wear. And these are perfectly good pair of pants, but they fit a little snug and I haven't worn them in over a year. So I wanted to make a cool skirt instead that I could wear for the summer. And I'm going to get started on this, but first I'm going to show you my favorite part of these pants, which is this ripped part over here. I want to incorporate it into my skirt, so I'm going to cut it out and find a way to just throw it in there. And I mean this quite literally because at this point I wasn't sure what I was doing. I started out with the intention of ripping the seams out with a blade, but then barely a second in, I got so frustrated and I just wanted to cry. So I immediately ditched my blade for a scissors instead and I went about just cutting it out. So I cut through the part that I wanted to use, and then once I was done, again I was so upset because right off the back my first mistake was cutting it inside out, because when I flipped it over I realized the whole thing was a jagged mess and it genuinely just made me want to give up. But I'm on a mission and we don't give up over here, so I carried on like everything was fine, internally repainted the gods of design to help me through this process. I took that blade again, which I really shouldn't have done, but whatever. At this point, I was just way too paranoid about making another mistake. I was thinking, what if I rip out something again and I have no material left to work with, and I have to call this whole thing a bust and stew in my misery for the rest of my life? I'm exaggerating, but such is my life. Moving on, right off the back, I know my skirt is not going to be this long anyway. It's probably going to have to stop at that length, so I'm cutting out the excess material at the bottom. I want to cover up the open parts of my skirt, so I grab one of my pant legs and I cut her up to be used as scrap material. Once I have all the scrap that I need, I shove it in there, pinning her down, trying my best and my hardest to make it neat and tidy. By the way, I know the scrap looks all over the place with those random lines and hems or whatever they're called, but I kind of like it and I think it adds some sort of like aesthetics to my skirt, so I'm going to go with the flow. Once I'm done with the front, I flip it over and do the exact same thing to the back with some scrap material, folding in the edges to hide its roughness. I also decided to cut that part a little bit, just enough for it to fall easily over the other side. I'm doing this so that it can lay flat and doesn't look too bulky. I do the exact same thing at the front too for the part that's just underneath the zipper. I tried on the skirt to see how everything was looking so far, and at this point, I'm feeling great, I'm feeling fulfilled, and I'm feeling slightly pleased. I'm thinking I'll probably make some more adjustments to that back fold because so far, not the cutest, but manageable. So I go ahead and cut out the excess material at the front and at the back. I set my prep stuff aside. After trying on this skirt, I'm thinking, is it too short? Is this the kind of life I want to live? Is this the kind of example I want to set for the generation before me? Low-key, yes, but I'm also a low-key righteous woman, so I decided it was too short. So I take all the scrap that I can put together and we make a plan. The plan is to make some kind of extension at the bottom, and I'm not sure if it'll work or what it'll look like, but I'm willing to try at least. So I cut up rectangles with my scrap. I considered measuring, but I was feeling extremely lazy, so I didn't. I eyeballed instead, and if we were averaging, I'd say about 3 inches worth of eyeballing. You can use any weighted item to hold down the material while you cut out more pieces for your skirt extension. I'm cutting enough pieces so that when I join them together, they can equal at least the total length of the circumference of the bottom of my skirt. So many words, I know. And once I was done doing that, I trim away the bulky parts and just try to make them as even as possible. Again, I'm not being excessively particular. I'm pinning the ends of each piece, front end facing front end, and prepping for sewing. I stitched this away from the camera and this is what it should look like. And I'm sorry I didn't show you, but you know, my camera died and I had to make do with what I had at the moment. And to be fair, you didn't miss out on much because I'm not that great a sewer anyway. Is it a sewer or a seamstress? Anyway, you know what I mean. Once that's done, I'm going to double fold at one end of my long piece, pin it down in preparation for while sewing. This end will serve as the actual bottom of my skirt, and if this doesn't make any sense, it'll make sense in a bit, okay? Okay. Once you're all done sewing, it should look something like this. Not bad for a non-professional. I'm getting good at this. Anyway, I forgot to trim out the bulky parts of the other end, so I'm just doing that right here. That way I can sew easier and not have to do too much work. So I just trim until it's looking cute and even and ready to be attached to the bottom of my skirt, and then I set it aside for now. Since I have all my stuff prepped, I am excited and ready to bring them all together as one big happy family. Back to my skirt, I trimmed more excess material from the bottom and decided to get to the stitching. And I'm just showing you how the process finna go, both at the front and at the back. And of course, midway through sewing, my sewing machine stops working. So I messaged said friend and I was like, help me, help me, help me. But I had a deadline to catch, so I went right into hand sewing, I guess, and right off the back, I'm struggling, but I mean, what's new? I'm out here YouTubing and Googling ways to make this hand sewing process easier, and somewhere in between doing this, I learned that there's such a thing as a double-eyed needle. Never seen it in my life, but it seemed pretty cool. Random information, do with it as you please. At this point, I've decided to go for a rugged, patchy style. I mean, if Kanye West can design clothes like these, no shade, I can pretty much do whatever the hell I want. Creativity does not discriminate, even when the outcome is questionable. I was so miserable through this hand sewing process, but I'm not gonna lie, but once I was done, it felt great. I flipped it over and cut out the excess material like bye bye bish, don't need you no more. Once that's done, I'm pinning my long piece to the bottom of my skirt in preparation for more sewing. I'm going all around until I get to the very end, then I'm doing the hand sewing thing all over again, which looks something like this when it's done. Not too shabby to be honest, and once I iron it out, it'll look way better. Or at least that's what I'm telling myself the whole time. This is the final part where I use the rib section as an extra pocket. And if you're thinking too many pockets already, trust me, it's not. The first pocket is a joke and the second one over there with the zipper isn't even a real pocket. I guess it's just a fashion statement or whatever these designers call it. So these are going to be my real badass pockets. But I also want to hide those rough edges because me no like, so I'm going to strategically sew some scrap material over it to cover it up. I'm kind of sewing the scrap at one corner, bringing it to fold over to the other corner, and then sewing again. I don't really know how to describe this method or what I'm doing, to be honest, but I think the video is quite explanatory, so just watch it closely, and if for some reason you need clarification, hit me up, no problem. Once you're done, fold the bottom part over and sew it into the material, and do the same for the top part as well, and then repeat 3 times for the other 3 corners to get the final result. So at this point, the pockets are ready to be sewn to this skirt, and I do this by sewing from inside the skirt through the thick pocket material so that the thread doesn't show on the outside. I tried on the skirt when this was done, and I wasn't feeling the sides of the skirt, so I end up bunching them up just to reduce that weird flare that I didn't see coming. And once that was sewn, the skirt is finally ready to be worn. Yay! It did not turn out exactly as I had intended, but I thought it still looked pretty dope. I was also able to style it with a couple of tops and pretty much ended up loving the outcome overall. I'm definitely excited to wear this skirt for the summer, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you, and see you next week. Bye!